I think there's a difference between people that have clear intentions and, clearly deranged people. But in the case of Shapiro, and I think in the case of Charlie Kirk, we know the intentions, the political intentions of the people at play. And when we sort of skirt around it and we're not honest about it, we let it off the hook.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to yesterday's news channel where we watch CNN so you don't have to. Earlier today, Scott Jennings was on the arena with Casey Hunt. Scott Jennings laid out undeniable evidence about the ideology that fueled Charlie Kirk's killer, and the panel scrambles to spin and deflect. In the second clip, we hear from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and that's when the cherry picking and narrative spin hits a whole new level. Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings torch this panel of liars, and then we'll break it all down. Let's go.
There is inherent violence on the left, and that, the government should be seeking out and rooting out these organizations when we have no indication that this shooter acted, at the behest of or through the organization of any of these groups. And I think when you start to bleed those two concepts together and create this notion that in this incredibly fraught moment in the wake of this horrific shooting, when you foment the idea that we have to be at each other's throats politically, I think that's a dangerous place to be.
Why did I do it? I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out.
So can I ask you? So
he has flat.
Scott, just explain what you just read.
That is the message that the shooter, Tyler Robinson, sent to his roommate. That is what he said. He also engraved the word, "Hey, fascist, catch," on the bullet. For 10 years, we have heard nothing from the left but that Donald Trump is a fascist, Republicans are Nazis, authoritarians, destroy the Constitution, bloodbath, dictator for a day. And he wrote it on the bullet.
So can I ask you?
And he's been obviously marinating in some kind of information that radicalized him based on what he heard in the air in this country.
So does the shooter who assassinated Melissa Hortman, who was a stated Trump supporter, whose roommate said...
Are you trying to equate these two things?
I'm sorry. Can you let me finish my thought, please?
Please.
We're talking about two people in politics who both...
I'm asking you, does that shooter represent the entirety of the MAGA movement? Of course not. I would never argue that. I don't think you would argue that. So why is it acceptable to use this moment to argue that somebody, a sick individual who committed a horrific crime,
how do you know he's sick?
Is somehow... Are you here to argue for his sanity?
I'm here to argue. All I know is what the prosecutor said today. He read very lucid messages from a shooter who was motivated by political hate, who had a plan to get away with it. He did not sound like a deranged person. He sounded like someone who had decided to take it upon himself to rid the world of someone that he hated politically, that he thought that the world would be better off without that. That's different than some deranged lunatic showing up off the street.
His actions were horrific, but to assign the specific, hateful, violent, awful actions of somebody on an individual on the right or an individual on the left,
I don't know that you're right about what happened in Minnesota.
To the entirety of the political conversation is incredibly dangerous and irresponsible in this moment.
Well, I think it's dangerous and irresponsible for nobody to take responsibility for 10 years of the use of the language fascism, Nazi, authoritarian, so on and so forth. It's on the bullet, Casey.
I have seen nothing but Democrats in the wake of this murder saying that it was awful.
You've seen nothing?
I have seen them
literally nothing?
Elected Democrats, I have seen them saying nothing but it was horrific, that they condemn it, that they are sorry for his family, that this is an awful moment in the country. I've seen President Trump do nothing but say it was the Democrats' fault.
Can I just jump in here for a second?
Lulu, yes, go ahead.
I just want to read the words of someone who I think is very wise in the wake of 2019 and the killing in El Paso. He wrote, "We have to stop blaming the politicians we loathe for the vile actions of the deranged, evil people who commit mass shootings." And so what I would say about that is those were wise words then, and they should be wise words now.
I don't disagree with any of that. What I am not happy about is that we have the shooter's words. We know what he put on the bullets. It's very clear what happened here. And there is a movement by some people to completely say, well, we have no idea.
Scott,
and we do.
Hold on. We have the floor. You can have the floor back. But here's the thing. I had to really struggle to understand all of the details that were on those bullets. They are internet memes from video games that people way younger than us play. Okay? There is something going on online that is merging with the real world in really strange ways. And I'm interested to know if you have grappled with that. I'm not sure it fits quite neatly. We think about the world in a certain way, right? We came up in our politics in a certain way, and now kids this kid's age are stewing in something different.
And you wrote something back then about a different shooter where they killed a bunch of Latinos. And you very explicitly in that article for CNN said, I do not believe that we should take the actions of one sick individual who might have acted towards hate and extrapolate that more widely to President Trump. And so I guess my question would be, why should that be different today?
Look, I am only reacting to what I have seen and heard out here for the last 8 years, which is nothing but Democrats and liberal pundits and supposed analysts assigning the word fascist to Republicans from Trump all the way down. I see a shooter who's engraved it on a bullet. I have a shooter who sent a message to his roommate,
Scott,
whatever. I've had enough of his hatred. I'm only simply suggesting that we stop looking the evidence in the face and saying,
I understand
gee whiz, what happened here?
But language has been used
We know.
on all sides. I mean, the person who have, the people who have called President Trump a Nazi was his present vice president and his present secretary of human
Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services. So, I mean, language is a problem. There's no question. I think what everyone is reacting to here is the fear that the use of this is going to make it so that you are now targeting people who aren't involved in this at all.
I always pronounce it Latinos. Can someone help me out? Do I have to now say Latinos? Seems a little patronizing. So you guys saw it. Scott lays out the killer's words. The message is not to his roommate, not just his roommate, his lover. The casing's engraved with Antifa slogans, trans slogans, even direct hatred for Charlie Kirk. That's not vague. That's not internet culture, Casey. That's ideology. The radical left ideology that has been allowed to fester in this country and that the left has openly encouraged. Casey, I stick up for you. I was disappointed. You see how she tried to muddy the waters there, saying, well, young people just talk differently online, as if that just explains away the hate? No, we know exactly what all of these words mean. They mean the left's rhetoric is poisoning minds and producing evil. And every time you try to call it out, you hear the same refrain. It's dangerous to point to one ideology. No, the real danger is pretending we don't know who's fueling this. Because when conservatives lose someone we love, like Charlie Kirk, which someone we love doesn't do it justice. It's a huge understatement. We hold vigils. We pray. We mourn. When the left loses a criminal, they burn the country down. And if you're still trying to argue violence comes from both sides, you're not arguing in good faith. I'm going to try very hard never again to hear some argue about violence from anyone on the left and then say, well, what about this and what about this, and go tit for tat. I'm done with that. If you want to have a conversation, let's stop pretending we don't know who's fueling this violence. Prior to what we're about to watch here, they played a clip of Josh Shapiro condemning violence. So that should give you enough context to see what they're talking about.
Jennings, I will note that the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, was someone who, when President Trump, somebody, was hit by a bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania, Shapiro stood up and denounced it in a clear, unequivocal way. Now he's saying we do the same thing here. Do you think that he's got a point?
Well, I think his point would be strengthened if he were honest today about who burned his house down. It was a Free Palestine leftist who came and burned down the governor's mansion. He left that out. He left that out of his tweet today, and he's talking about cherry-picking political violence, and we're talking about where there might be political violence. The violence against the governor of Pennsylvania and his family came from the left. And so I think there's a rush by Democrats who want to be president in 2028 to try to turn. Somehow Donald Trump's friend gets shot, and now everybody wants to blame Donald Trump for it. I guess that's what you have to do to get elected president. as a
Scott,
Democrat.
but
We are
governor's
not
point-
doing that sitting here, okay? And Kate,
I'm
please
sorry.
go ahead.
Is that not what's happening?
The governor's
People are
point. The governor's point is it doesn't matter where the violence came from.
I
It's a
think it
problem, and
might.
should be condemned.
Shouldn't it matter
So
the
regardless-
motivations of the people?
It should be condemned regardless. Is the entire point
Agreed.
of his speech.
Don't you
to
care
sit
about
here-
the motivations?
To sit here and suggest that somehow him not mentioning it was some sort of sleight of hand
course it
to try
is.
to make it seem like it was.
I don't
someone
think his
else's fault.
political party would
You missed
accept
the
it.
entire point of what he was saying, and it's a message that's badly needed in this country at this moment.
Look, I think that if we cannot be honest, if I were him and somebody tried to burn my house down, I think I'd be honest about who did it and why they did it. And it would matter for people to know that, would it not?
Scott, is this not a let's rise above because anyone that is committing an act of political violence who is trying to kill someone else for what they believe in, it's like it is inherently wrong and awful.
Why are your two impulses mutually exclusive? Why can't we all say all political violence is bad, which I wholeheartedly believe, and also be honest when people have clear intentions? I think there's a difference between people that have clear intentions and, clearly deranged people. But in the case of Shapiro, and I think in the case of Charlie Kirk, we know the intentions, the political intentions of the people at play. And when we sort of skirt around it and we're not honest about it, we let it off the hook. And I don't think we should let people with clear political intentions to commit violence off the hook. And so I like what he said about condemning violence. I just would like it a little more if we could just be a little bit honest about what happened at his house.
You would just like it if a politically critical message was applied to what he was trying to say. I mean, that's what you're saying, right? You're saying you like what he said in condemning political violence across the board, but it didn't work for you because you didn't try to get in a dig at whose fault it was. The entire point is that we have to condemn political violence from all sides, in all stripes, in whatever form. And I think the fact that we are sitting here even having this conversation is deeply problematic in terms of where the temperature is in the country right now. I think the fact that you would call him dishonest.
I agree that it is problematic that a prominent Democrat cannot be honest about who tried to burn his house down. I totally agree with you about that.
Cannot be honest. As if, did he misrepresent it?
He didn't mention it and has refused to say it.
I think the only person misrepresenting what he said today, Scott Jennings, is you.
No, I'm reading what he tweeted. I listened to his speech. I'm not misrepresenting anything. I'm just saying that, unless we say it out loud, how will people know?
So yeah, essentially the clip of Josh Shapiro speaking was accusing Donald Trump of cherry picking which political violence to talk about. But the irony is rich, my friends, because Shapiro is the one cherry picking the facts, as Scott pointed out. He has no problem bringing up the fact that his home was attacked and he's been a victim of political violence, but he leaves out that it wasn't conservatives at all. It was far left pro-Palestine activists. It's the same trick we see him play every night. Shave off the details that don't fit the narrative so the party keeps its gleaming reputation polished. And look where it's gotten us. For years, conservatives shrugged. We laughed off the far left, mocked their nonsense on libs of TikTok. But the left didn't laugh. They empowered them. They called anyone who objected a bigot. And now these people aren't just memes online. They're dangerous. They're radicalized. And Democrats refuse to take responsibility. Casey Hunt praised Shapiro for being one of the first to condemn the attempt on President Trump's life, as if saying don't assassinate the president is heroic. It's not courage. That's the bare minimum. The bar is so low for the Democrat Party, it's underground. They're still tripping over it. If condemning an assassination attempt makes you a hero on the left, the bar could not possibly be lower. What do you guys think? Do you, like me, think the proof is crystal clear that the left's rhetoric is fueling violence? Or do you buy CNN's excuse that it's just internet culture or whatever Casey said? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. I want to thank everyone watching again for all your support, your comments, your likes, your hypes, your shares, your notifications, whatever the things are. I really appreciate it. The last few videos have been doing great, and I'm optimistic that we can get this train back on the tracks and start getting some significant growth. So thank you all so much. Otherwise, always put God first. I'll see you guys.